Absolutely, the 9/11 incident is the trigger, was the trigger for facilitating this whole agenda of integrating North America into a fortress America for the purposes of that military corporate elite agenda to conquer the world, and it's worked for them. People, we've had massive anti-terrorist laws that have stripped us of so many of our precious rights, and so many of the institutionalized processes that are happening are all justified on 9/11. The fact that we've got troops dying in Afghanistan is justified on 9/11. So it's really important and crucial that there be a full inquiry, proper Royal Commission kind of apparatus that looks very carefully at the existing evidence, that sits down and is a body that receives formally the existing powerfully compelling evidence about what really happened, and then presents that in a statement, and then that a political body acts on that. Because until we do that, until we face that, the pressure into this agenda is going to continue. There's no question.
Right. I read an article, I believe it was in Star, CTV, anyhow, where they were talking about bringing more Mexican workers up to work in Canada.
Of course.
And we've already got like a seasonal kind of work program here, but they want to make this across the board and not just in, say, agriculture, but industry-wide.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that whole mobility that workers is all about cheap labor, and it's all about slave labor. Getting people to the lowest common denominator, and it was going to mean loss of jobs for working people. The middle class is will disappear under this kind of a structure. That's the agenda. There's not to be any middle class because they take too much of the resources, and they demand. They're educated
and they're independent.
And they demand a participation. Got to get rid of those guys. They get in the way.
Exactly. So what can Canada really do when we're already this far down the road?
Well,
can we turn around?
Yes, of course we can. It's just like these representatives that are here from the various sections of the United States of America. They're saying first thing we want to do is we want to get out of NAFTA, and that's the same thing we have to do here in Canada, because that's the linchpin. That's the structure from which everything else flows, and. The Canadian Action Party has been saying that since our inception. We recognize that need. None of the other parties will do that, but the Green Party has a good line on a lot of things, but their position is, yes, we'll abrogate NAFTA, but then we'll renegotiate it. It doesn't make sense. That's a contradiction. The design of NAFTA has nothing to do really with trade. We heard all that today. We know that, and it's you've just got to eliminate that model completely, get rid of it. And there's good movement in the states to doing that. Good movement in the states against forwards to a very committed, strict position. We want this integration. We want to get rid of all this apparatus of integration. We want to just get rid of it all. Get it out. Stop it. And so when you say, well, what can we do in Canada? We can do that too, and we just have to have some people with some jam in politics who are going to assert that same kind of leadership. It's not a question of creating a new model. Like I heard Maud Barlow say yesterday, we don't like the model. They're complaining about the SPP. It's not a good model. She's not talking about quitting it. She's just saying, I guess their line is, let us get there at the table and we'll talk and we'll shape a model for the integration.
Right. They just want a piece of the pot.
They want to be a piece of the pot. And the reality is Canada was a good country from its beginning. We've got a good structure. We've got a good constitution. We've got a good setup. Just give us back ours.
Yeah, exactly.
Take back what is ours, and just cut off all this crap that's been added to us, like the no-fly lists. Get rid of the anti-terrorist legislation. Turn our borders back into a border for Canada. Get rid of the right now the massive money that's gone into restructuring the border to make it an accommodation basically for the free flow of goods. And the apparatus, the border people, they're identical now to, might as well be the U.S. Homeland Security guarding our borders. We've got our borders with border people with guns. That's not our history. That's not our tradition. We don't need that. So, yes, there's much that we can do. We just need a will.
Right.
We just need the will.
And we saw a good portion of that yesterday, but it turned out.
Yeah. The trouble with my concern with the kind of apparatus yesterday is the leadership of that structure is not calling
Well,
the way I
like
am.
you said, yeah.
They're
Wanting a piece of pie.
they're wanting a piece of pie. And in my view, the leadership, not the people who were there with us, but the leadership of that kind of an arrangement yesterday. I've seen it operating for a lot of years. They're really an arm. They're really an arm of the globalists. They want globalization, but they say we want humanist globalization. They want the end of nations. I've heard them say it, and I've seen it in their writings. They're against the concept of sovereignty too. Well, you know, you're either a believer in democracy or you're not. And democracy doesn't mean end of nation states. It doesn't mean end of sovereignty. Right? And it doesn't mean special interest groups of unelected, unaccountable, non-governmental organizations that are from the quote good guy side any more than from the bad guy side. They've got to be elected and accountable. There's got to be a process by which we can remove anybody that's there making decisions and replace them. And these non-governmental organizations that are wanting a new model are not elected, and they're not accountable, and it's not fair.